And the women, it turns out, had been keeping a portion of their cash salary for themselves for their own independent use and had been bringing home the rest of it to the household and had not necessarily informed their husbands of that. But when they switched to digitized wages, the husbands were seeing the deposit amounts in the accounts and realizing that the women had been withholding a portion of their salaries for their own personal use, and it created friction in the households. And it was a decision on a new delivery channel and a new design of offering financial services done without the knowledge or input of the customer, and that led to a negative outcome for the customer. So that's just an example of why it's so important in product design to consult the customers who are supposed to benefit from your decisions before you go ahead and launch that new channel of product.
From a financial service provider side, the primary challenges were the high cost of serving groups in remote areas and the high cost of obtaining information to evaluate the groups or their members' creditworthiness. So we decided to meet people where they were and build on what was working well. So savings groups were already successfully lending their own savings. They just needed a little bit more money. And so we decided that we would build on those familiar processes, and the loan would go to the group cash box rather than individuals. So we would eliminate that need to have the time-intensive evaluations of individuals, and instead that we needed to develop a method for evaluating the quality of the group itself.
What do we mean by more impactful? To me, more impactful really sits around a couple of dimensions. One is products that meet clients where they are with what they need. So it's products that match their cash flows. It's products that help them buy an asset. It's products that are affordable, and products that grow with them as they grow.
But at the end of the day, only keeps the informal status of the small-scale fishery, because those transactions, they don't leave any footprint behind. One of the mechanisms fishers do to cope with this situation is that they race to fish as much fish as they can to sort of offset the fact that they can't finance themselves with formal financial services. And when we talk about the loans or the services that are provided in this patron-client relationship or financing themselves with the value chain, what we often oversee is that most of these loans and financial services have to be paid back in fish. So this even creates an incentive to fish more and more and more.
National security areas like combating money laundering and terrorism financing is not an objective that we drive toward in a vacuum, nor is financial inclusion pursued without consideration for many other factors. Instead, these areas align in a common, mutually supporting vision of providing inclusive access for consumers to safe, affordable, and secure financial goods and services, making financial inclusion a cornerstone of our national and economic security interests.
If you look at the Ghana economy and the way things are done, AI definitely will improve almost everything in the country. We right now have 70% internet penetration within the country, but the problem might be that even though the internet reaches into beyond the urban areas, into rural areas, there are people, maybe they don't have the devices or the know-how, or maybe sometimes you can have electricity problems where they can actually get access to services that may be available. But definitely these are going to be improved over time. The use of digital payments, technology, mobile money transfer, and now with AI is definitely going to improve the situation when it comes to different SDGs.
This is a forum where people are willing to really grapple with difficult topics and debate those topics and create a platform for conversation that I think is incredibly important as we sort of think about the next 10 years. I mean, I know we're on our 10th anniversary of Financial Inclusion Week, and the last 10 years have represented a lot of progress, but there is a lot more work for all of us to do.
I think for me, what stood out was this whole idea of intersectionality. And we often speak about it in the context of gender. But when we think about the 2 billion that remain underserved and the 3 billion that are now digitally excluded, I think the intersectionality of gender, disabilities, health, and all these other factors, the people that are at the intersection are the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we talk too glibly about risks or trade-offs. And I think we need to be much more intentional, because for them, it's not the simple issue of trade-offs. It's often the case of critical life choices.
Yeah.
About what to eat or who eats and what to forego, and who to send to school. And I think that is really important for us to keep in mind
Yeah.
as we drive inclusion over the next 10 years.
There are some global themes and trends we can sort of talk about and think about, but at the end of the day, this is very local, right? It is about the lives people lead in their communities and how those communities work, right? And I think we need to, continue to develop that local base. And that's why I think it takes all of us, right? All the 3,000 people and more who are in this conversation to really be thinking about all these things and continuing the kind of conversation across the group here.